topic I wanted to address, talk about, namely acting, and the connection between acting, the actor's art, and poetry or writing, and maybe visual art as well. I don't know. Anything's possible in this day and age. But my thoughts are not very well organized. So here I am organizing them, which is part of the point I was similar to the point I was making. I'm not making a point here by saying that, but I was making a point online on the Discord to Johnny, because he was talking about writing, this age-old debate whether or not it's better to write with an outline, or just sort of by the seat of your pants. Well, I guess it's called Pantsin. Okay, that must be the origin of it. I was asking him what the origin. I just discovered it myself. Pantsin, I think, flying by the seat of one's pantaloon heads when writing, especially a longer work, especially in a longer work that would seem to be foolish. Johnny used an analogy from carpentry or construction, building a house by starting with the decorative features of it, and then trying to work around those, which should be stupid. But one of the things I pointed out is with a shorter story, you can pants it because it's smaller. Like if you're building a birdhouse rather than a human dwelling place, you could probably pants it. You just sort of eyeball the size of the walls, so you know what a birdhouse looks like. Sure. If you don't, go to Google.com or Bing.com and search birdhouse. There are a lot of fancy ones nowadays. So here I am pantsing my thoughts. So that was one thing I said to Johnny. I guess I'll recap the other things I said to him, because I was running parallel to a similar question. I don't know if Johnny watched the Salt Lake City Mormon. What's his name? Whoever the guy is, Brandon Sanderson or something. I was watching a little while ago. He inherited the course from Orson Scott Card. Someone else on YouTube recommended it. I look into not his fiction, but his didactic teaching. Anyway, I guess he formed this famous science fiction course, writing genre fiction. And he brings up that whatever it is, Brigham Young. What is it? Brigham Young, where all the Mormons are great practitioners of the art of fiction writing, on account of Joseph Smith, who's a great fiction writer. Little joke. Anyway, so that featured in there, suffice it to say. But also I've been watching these lectures from the University of Chicago. They have a writer's workshop. A friend turned me on to. It's a workshop where basically fledgling academics go, people who are on the brink of tears, really. The lecturer describes having a Kleenex box in his office because people come and cry. These academics who are writing these academic articles, no one's reading it, and I guess they're under some kind of pressure to do better. So they pack their bags, and they take a jaunt over to the U of Chicago, which it was, of course, Leo Strauss's old haunt. Not that that's relevant, except insofar as the University of Chicago seems to have a reputation for academic rigor, and even be tarred and feathered as some kind of fascistic outpost. This writing program, in particular, has been, I think, caricatured that way, because the advice given is to hone the written product to speak to whoever's reading it, basically. So to have a reader in mind, and to write in such a way that that appeals to their prejudices. I might be mischaracterizing it a little bit. I only watched one lecture, but I also downloaded the handbook that goes with the course. So I was flipping through that. I printed that out. I was looking through it. Anyway. I'm not going to be able to explain the whole thing, but part of what I enjoyed about the lecture is that the lecturer was so theatrical. It was a lot of times I watch lectures not so much for content, but because I enjoy the theatricality of the lecturer. Not solely, but it's a big part of the appeal for me. It's a sort of performance. But anyway, the gist of that whole series, the U Chicago, is that writers, academic writers, he's speaking to, write to understand something. And writing in general is a great tool of understanding. John Piaget remarked that he could not think without writing. To write is to think in a certain way, just as to speak is to think. There's something about manifesting your thoughts in a more, whether it's spoken or written fashion, that actually allows you to think, because it's kind of an extension. I think to myself right now, it's sort of an extension of one's memory, especially with the written word, because you can scan back and see everything you've written and modify it and touch it up. Our memories ordinarily are limited, so spoken speech is not quite as expansive as written speech, but it too, I think, has a kind of expansive quality, an expansion of one's memory, or partakes of that. I'm fumbling over my grammar. How would be the question? How does that work with speaking? Well, I guess it's much sloppier than writing, but it's also more expressive, because you can give cadence, tone, things you're saying, and although it might not be so organized, there is more of an expressive quality that comes through, which is not so much an extension of memory, perhaps, but it's a way of, splashing the paint of your thoughts onto the canvas of language, of spoken language, and everything that means. And as you speak, you hear yourself speak, and things you say, had you only thought them in your own head, acquire, in the act of speech, a particularity, specificity of expression that then kind of guides your thinking, because then saying things a particular way, and then you have to sort of continue the track that you're on, and it's not always for the best. Sometimes we get into bad habits of how we express things, and you start to talk. Maybe you're angry over you stubbed your toe, or you couldn't find your toothbrush, or whatever. Maybe you couldn't find your toothbrush for your whole life. You've been stubbing your toe every morning for your whole life. And so you got all this bottled up anger, and the minute you open your mouth to speak, all of a sudden all the angry tones start to impede upon your discourse, intrude upon your discourse, rather. Before you know it, you're just shaking your fist at the clouds, screaming to Johanna, "Oi Gewalt!" So it's its own kind of musical instrument. The mouth, the tongue. It's important to cleanse with prayer. It's like doing your scales. Your musician has to do his scales, I guess. Not that I ever do mine. Not that I'm that much of a musician. I try. Anyway, I'm getting a little far afield because I'm just kind of enjoying talking into my phone again. What's the point, I guess? What am I trying to adapt to? I guess first that well, so let me finally state a little more clearly what it was I wanted to talk about in the first place. It wasn't so much writing as acting, and I guess how acting affects both writing and other things. But acting being that primary art form which uses the voice and has to be flexible, be limber enough. Emotionally and tonally to express things expressively. I was listening to so Paul Talk's last video was on was a response to Marco. I forget what his YouTube handle is, but I was emailing him as well. Sent him one of my essays. He read a portion of it. Gave me some helpful notes. Shout out to Marco if you're watching. He's helped me with all of his COVID commentary. Just, giving me some new insights and some fresh insights, but also, I think a little bit more, maybe more importantly, he's emboldened me by being a man of great learning, it seems to, by standing as strongly against COVID as he is, all that it represents for global empire and tyranny, is emboldened me to make my little stand as much as I can. Basically, this means not wearing the mask. Trying to anyway, which is difficult. A state like Pennsylvania with a Democratic governor, people take it very seriously. It's down south. You live in Miami, it's no big thing. Here in PA, you gotta wear the mask. But anyway, acting. It was something that I got into for a while. I got the acting bug. Speaking of pandemics, I was infected. The acting bug at a certain point. And even went so far as to go to the acting school. People who have been following my channel know. In New York. You make it here, you make it anywhere. If you don't make it here, then fuck you. That's the motto. Anyway, despite having a bit of a up and down not so nice relationship with my instructors. Several of them were really actually very good actors, and I think about them sometimes and what they taught, and just the level of expressivity that they gave to everything they were saying. Why did I bring up Marco? I brought up Marco because in his channel, he's got a rendition of The Raven that he recorded several years ago, which I really enjoyed. I don't know. I did a class project on Edgar Allan Poe when I was in high school, and hadn't really thought about him since, except once or twice. I think about him oddly a lot actually, but I never really read him seriously. And Marco's rendition of The Raven, which is really wonderfully done, very full of fear and trembling. Really, just a really energetic, very expressive performance. Because normally when you hear people recite The Raven, if you've watched like 7 or 8 Raven recitations on YouTube, like I have, it's a bit dorky, very monotone. Even the professional voice actors who do The Raven, like James Earl Jones or whoever, adopt a very formal, august tone, rhythmically blah 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 blah, and Marco's was more. It had much more variation, and was not trying to assume some sort of perfect archetype of Poe reader, but was rather just using his own voice. And it's a difficult thing in acting, I think, to, on the one hand, be expressive, but on the other hand, to use your own voice and to not rely too heavily on sheer affectation. Because, in other words, like the putting on of an accent, the putting on of a vocal manner that's not really you, but rather to express the things that sort of the ups and downs of different emotions, anger and fear and mockery and all those things, but to do it on your own 2 feet, to stand squarely on your own voice, and to be able to, and I think part of that, what that involves sometimes is developing your own voice, because a lot of I think the reason why actors sometimes fall into, or it's something I think I was guilty of whenever I was acting back in college productions, videos at times, is the reason you rely on going into some kind of affect, some kind of accent, is that it's easier to express a certain attitude or a certain emotion if you don't own it yourself. If you project it onto some sort of fictional person that you're playing, but you don't actually embody that. So I'm trying to think of an example. Like, you go into like a hoity-toity British accent to express snobbery, right? So, oh my, very very nice, isn't it? Yeah. Well, yes, I suppose if you bought it at you get what I said. You go into some kind of mode like that, which has its place. It's not like those things. It's not. There's no use forever going into an accent to parody something. But insofar as you rely upon that to express a certain attitude, which you would find it unbecoming or just like too uncomfortable or just sort of you're not capable, that's outside of your emotional range as a human being, like that's an expression of humanity which is real. Like it's an emotion that people have, but you yourself find it difficult to relate to that, because for whatever reason it doesn't have to be snobbery or whatever it is, whatever top psychology of anger, basic emotions, sadness, happiness, red, green. There's the color wheel, but then there's every different shade in between. Some emotions just seem to fall outside of our range. We can't even, and this comes into play when you're reading something or when you're acting for a script, I suppose. But also just when you're reading more generally, or especially maybe when you're reading poetry, which is so expressive, and trying to strike the right tone, but not really feeling up to the task many times, because it's not a tone that you are familiar with, or that would even necessarily occur to you. But I think great acting is sort of ought to be invisible. Not that it can't be, especially stage acting, not that it can't be larger than life, projecting out more than you would and start talking, maybe like that a little bit. But doing it from a place of groundedness, and when you do adopt an affect, doing so consciously and with a purpose rather than as a crutch. So anyway, all that to say that I'm interested, I guess, in how all those questions relate to sort of life in general, and one's emotional range, just living one's life in all the circumstances that involves, but also that is as relevant in some ways to the task of writing or reading, and developing a voice, as well as hearing a voice that is intended to be heard in a given thing. So, I don't know, maybe connecting back a little bit to the question of outlining versus pantsing when one's writing something. It seems to me like it's a chicken or egg. Not exactly chicken or egg type of a problem in a way. It's the female and the male aspect, the yin and the yang. Whether or not which would be the yang is the masculine, the white. Light is the masculine, so, and the masculine's being the symbol of that which you can see. That's why it's white, like light. Everything is revealed. That would be the outline. And then the yin would be the black, which is invisible, which you can't see, which is sort of bubbling out more organically, more sort of, the way that a particular inflection of a particular phrase just springs to one's lips as one says it, would be an aspect of yin, perhaps. I think so. So when in writing, spontaneity versus outline. I don't think it's necessary to make a choice, but rather to engage both and realize the relative strengths and weaknesses of both, and the complementarity of both. It shouldn't really be a contest. I mean, whenever there's a long-standing dispute between two things, usually indicates that there's a paradox, which indicates a larger reality. So whether it's particles and waves, or mind and matter, or nature versus nurture. All these sort of dualities exist around us all the time. William James had a great way of talking about it in his lecture on pragmatism, his essay, Pragmatism, where he describes coming upon a hiking party, and they got into a dispute over whether or not a squirrel that's going around a tree, if the observer follows the squirrel, so that the squirrel is always between the tree and the observer, both kind of orbiting the tree together, whether or not that squirrel has rounded the tree or not. Has it gone around the tree? And it all depends on what you mean by around. With respect to the observer, no. The squirrel has not gone around the tree. You've had your eye on him the whole time. But, with respect to the tree itself, it has. So, anyway, I think it's like the third or fourth time I've brought up that example, but oh well. That's probably a good place to stop. I know I'm pressing my luck a little bit that anybody will watch this far now, but I saw that Johnny on the Discord had responded to me, so I wanted to say a little bit more. He had said, he had read my comments and said that one needs to begin with a strong definition. So his definition is that the story equals character plus movement. It sounds like B equals MC squared or something. I don't know what that formula will really help to accomplish. I mean, I guess the other thing I can mention is that I've been telling nighttime stories to my son, and he's enthralled by them, even though they're completely improvised and not that good. Excuse me. So an example of one story. I've been showing him, he loves airplanes, and I've been showing him all this airplane footage. First of the Wright brothers, I was showing him old black and white footage, but I think I've been showing him a little bit too much. The sign is that I've been showing him too much is that he's starting to develop tastes for different types of airplane videos. Now he wants to watch the Trick Air show, Blue Fog Flying Angel jets, patterns up in the sky. He's no longer interested in poor old Orville and Neville Wright. Those are their names. New Hampshire, live stronger. Was it live free or die? Live free or die, New Hampshire. Or no, it was, sorry, North Carolina. Anyway, so one story I told him was a big airplane. And on this airplane, there were elephants, and the elephants were running back and forward on the airplane. There were even other airplanes on this airplane. There were houses on the airplane. It was a big airplane. And that was just a coach. You should see first class. And anyway, this airplane is blue. As blue as the sky. So when it's up in the sky, if it's a blue sky, you look and you won't see anything until you start to discern the outline of the airplane. There it is. It goes all the way to Grandma's. Gets out. The elephants get out. All the airplanes on the airplane get out. The horses get out. The houses make their way tiptoeing out of the airplane. I don't know, there's no character there. Is there movement? Sometimes there's a character. Usually a boy. Maybe a boy who is having a birthday party. Something like that. I'm not trying to suggest that these are great stories. They're not. But it's, what strikes me as interesting about the whole thing is how easily captivated a small child is by a story like that. Given their limited experience in the way that a story like that for a young child is just learning language. It's infinitely expansive. It's broadening their understanding of the world. They want to hear it again and again and again, so they can drink it up, let it all sink in. And it makes me think about myself when I was younger, not necessarily a young child like that, but when I was an adolescent. And I would watch lots and lots and lots of movies, TV, shows, and how affecting it would all be for me. I just wanted to watch more and more and more. I had an insatiable appetite, just glutting myself on these different stories all the time, every day, all the time. That's all I wanted to do for a long time. In high school, I blacked out the window in my room, wanted pitch blackness, so I could just have my own little one-man cinematheque. I grew very pale and skinny. And just sort of stare bug-eyed for like 7-hour stretches on an almost daily basis. Maybe not 7 hours. I would watch sometimes 4 movies in a row.